Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Sandy Allnock. I'm an artist and I'm back. I'm kind of excited about it. It's been a long time since I've been in the studio and doing any fresh art to film and share with you, and especially a long while since I put out any new classes. And it just feels good to be on the other side of a long venture of healing. If you want to know more about what I did while I was healing, my last two videos share quite a bit about that, and it seems to be helpful to people, so I would recommend going back and watching those. Today, what I want to focus on is doing some finishing techniques on a drawing that I did 2-3 months ago. I did it in advance of my birthday, which was this past week. Thank you very much for your wishes. And for that, I wanted to have a sale, and I decided I would draw balloons and use them for the sale. But when I looked at this drawing before I was ready to take pictures of it to use it, I realized it needed a little help. So I decided to do some finishing touches and show that to you. That balloon drawing in its miniature format is in the new class, but I wanted to show it to you in a larger drawing today, and then at the end of the video, we'll talk about the class. All right, let's get started. So as I mentioned earlier, I looked at this drawing before taking a photograph of it to use it for my marketing stuff and realized it just needed a little something. And you know, I'm an eternal fiddler, so I could fiddle with this till the cows come home, but I decided to just try a few specific things. This area right here really bugged me because I hadn't gotten the dark shadow of the silver balloon close enough to the purple balloon to really get a sharp edge there. But I'm not going to leave it as a line. I'm going to make it a shape. And I talk about that quite a bit. You don't see a line around something, but if you can build a shadow shape around it somewhere, that's going to help give you the definition between two objects. Once I got at least that portion, that thing that really bugged me, I started realizing that gray balloon, that silver balloon, was just too much of a dark charcoal gray look, and I wanted something that looked much brighter, you know, very light kind of silver. And I started with a gray pencil, very light gray pencil. You could dive right into a white pencil if you feel confident in that, but I like to try going with a soft tone like this so that I don't go too far too fast. Because when you start adding white pencil, you get tempted to really press hard and to try to, I'm going to see if I can make this really bright. And you end up building up so much color that you can't really rework it very well. There are some tricks to rework it and stuff, but just keep yourself to the safe side and try to use color for it. Same with my shadows. For the purple balloons and the pink balloons, I tried to use the purples and the pinks for the shadows so that I didn't go overboard. But on that gray balloon, that silver balloon, I had jumped way too early into a dark gray pencil and a black pencil for the shadows. So I wanted to lighten all that up. Once I had gotten a bunch of the gray in there, I felt more confident in figuring out where that white could really be helpful, and just kept kind of stepping back and squinting at it so that I could see whether or not I still had too much dark in any particular spots. When you're doing any kind of super refined work like this, especially at the end of the drawing, get your pencil really sharp. Now, I just purchased for myself another AF-Mat. I've used the AF-Mat hand crank for quite some time, loved that, and decided to invest in one of the battery operated, well, it's not battery operated, it's USB, so it's rechargeable. And it works quite nicely. It's a little on the squeaky side with certain pencils. I'll have to do some more tests with it and figure out if it's, I think it's just certain kinds of pencils because I didn't notice it too much with these Polychromos. But with some of my charcoal pencils, they definitely made really weird squeaky noises. But I'll let you know as I do more testing with that. But sharp pencil will really help, especially here where I'm trying to use very light pressure over top of this balloon to get all of these transitions between dark shapes and mid-tone shapes softer. because one of the things I loved about the photo reference that I used was that it was just really soft blends everywhere. And it was just an elegantly taken photo. It was in a room where you can really see the structure of the room. There's like a long bank almost of windows, and then a bank of windows at the far end of the room. There's other objects in there. There's some reflections from the other balloons hitting the main purple balloon there. And when you're looking at your highlights and your reflections and things on a balloon, see if you can get a feeling of there being a room without trying to draw the room. Nobody really needs to see the whole room. That's not the main thing. The main thing is the balloons themselves, and the room is just the atmospherics around it. So keeping that general and more soft can really help your balloons to end up looking actually more realistic in the long run. Now, once I got those whites in there, I went in with a black pencil to just start to add in pops of shadow, because now I could see much more clearly that I had some real darks in that silver balloon in the background, but I needed some comparable types of darks in the other balloons. Not a lot of them, and I'm letting the purple hang on and do most of the work of the shadows. But there are going to be some really specific types of shadow shapes that I can pull in from the photo. It doesn't have to be exactly as the photo is. When you're working on something like this, I almost recommend putting the photo away at some point and just asking yourself, what communicates here? What are you seeing? And I was seeing some areas that just needed a little more of a dimensional pop, I guess you could say. And I wanted to add some shadows in there to deepen that contrast between them so that each of the balloons would start to read as a real balloon and be a little less on the flat side. You can see as soon as I added the black pencil, a lot of that started really happening. And the sharp black pencil, is also going to add some real definition to some of the shapes. So this, balloon here that I'm working on, this purple one, just needed a little bit more oomph to it so that it would feel more like it was part of the scene instead of it was just some really soft balloon in the background. Just needed to have some kind of strong contrast. And then as I bring that black into that corner of the drawing, it's going to anchor everything so that the highlights on that balloon, the reflections on the balloon, become more important because the rest of that will disappear. I had mentioned earlier not to use black any more than you have to. I generally don't use black for shadows unless I need to. And in this particular case, I needed to, because the colors that I had in the balloons were 2 purples and 2 pinks. I didn't have any complements I was already using to build up shadows, so I used something that was in the gray balloon. It had some dark grays and black in it. And so those blacks fit with the whole drawing. And if I were to try to add complements in here now, it would just complicate things more. And in the class that I'm going to talk about here in a minute, I'm trying to simplify things a little bit more because we're working with very, very small drawings. This one's large compared to that. So in order to see the difference between these, let's look at the before, when it didn't have those pops of contrast in it and didn't have quite the softness of adding all of that lighter color in there, and then the contrast with the black, which, adds just that oomph. So here's again before and after. And you can see the difference you can get by adding contrast to your art. I got to a project during this season that I have wanted to get to for a very, very, very long time. And that is a new hex art class. Many moons ago, and I do mean many moons ago, if you were one of my students back then who took the class in person, I created that class online because all of you loved it enough in person. That was in alcohol markers. And I have been thinking ever since then that I really needed to do that one in colored pencil. The thing that stopped me is that it's a lot of research to get the lessons planned and figure out what techniques would be taught, because it is 42 techniques. And yes, I have all 42 techniques on a piece of paper. This is my sample. I am in the process of filming a whole new one and getting that ready for the lessons. And it takes forever to plan it because not only do I have to figure out the colors going across the page so it's kind of feels like a rainbow, but also so that the lessons make sense. And that's where the handout comes in. You'll print this out and try a sample one. Try the techniques first on this and then draw them onto the finished hex art piece. You can see our little balloons right there in hexagon number 18. Now, each one of these will have a video that will show you how to do it. And like I said, I recommend practicing it on the handout and then moving to wherever in the grid, the number in the grid that corresponds with where you want this in the handout. Now, this class is going to actually use photographs as references, but some of them are going to be really hard to draw. And if your sample comes out and you're like, I don't really like that one, you can use anything in those colors in order to keep the hexagons going across the page correctly, but not with something that complicated. Because this is a level 4 class, so I'm considering people who at least can do a small bit of drawing, and some of these will be a little challenging. So you're welcome to swap those out for something easier if you would like to do that. But you can try it out on these sheets before moving to the finished one, because the finished one, you want to have all of those in order. Now, I did some color comparisons for this, and the Luminance and the Derwent Light Fast pencils were missing a few colors along the way. But I'll be doing the demos in Polychromos, and I do have all of the Prismacolors for them. There's some colors that I put in here that are a little darker than the ones used elsewhere, so if you're using a different brand, you may need to just lighten up pressure if you find a color that's similar. So the link to the class is in the doobly-doo down below the video. And remember, the birthday sale is on until the end of March. I hope to see you in the colored pencil hex art class. It's such a blast, and it is on a deeper discount right now during pre-registration. So you want to sign up right away. Link to that is in the doobly-doo, as well as the coupon code that you can use for other classes, because the coupon code is good on things that are not already on sale. Now, I also want to make sure if you are not a colored pencil person and you prefer watercolor, on the Mighty Networks app, go to the Art Venture group. That is my group that I run over there, and we are going to be walking ourselves through day by day the 30 Days to More Confident Watercolor Sketching class. That's going to start April 1st. It's not going to be new content other than we're all going to be just sharing what we're doing. I'm going to be painting larger versions of each one of them just to challenge myself. You don't have to do that for yourself, but that's what I'll be doing, and I'll be working with some reference photos this time as well. All right, I hope to see you very soon. Get out there and create something every day. And thank you for all of your well wishes. And I hope to be back to 100% full strength very soon. Bye.